important, and it's something we're also going to have a conversation about. Now, the shifts in politics over time has been immense in our country, from welfare, and the move from government to governance is also in high contention for Uganda in Uganda's democratic journey and the growth for Uganda's democracy. But in today's discussion, the theme we shall consider the large conversations and questions on shifting relationships between the state, the political society, and the former political public, and then also creating room for the former political public of the country, and particularly regimes of development, and then also putting focus on development policy. Our guest this morning, I have Judith Nalukwago, Woman Councillor-elect, Makindye West. Very good morning, Judith.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for joining us.
To viewers.
All right. And the gentleman on my far left is David Ayisu, NRM chairperson from Butebo. A very good morning, David. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to my viewers. Morning to.
Okay. And as we get into this conversation, you will also realize that political development is something that many of us are eagerly waiting for in the country. There is development, but people feel that politically we need to have the right boxes ticked as a country so that we could say we are mature in the realm of the politics. But as we get into how the country has stand up, this year started on a political note. I want to hear from my guest. I'll start with Judith. When you look at, you know, the state of our politics and its growth, have we developed greatly in 2026, or has there been a backslide?
One thing we should first ask ourselves is, does really politics affect our development? And for me, the answer is yes, 100%. It affects business, it affects education, infrastructure, and all those things. Because decisions are made by these leaders who are politicians, whom we vote for. So it is very important for everyone there to know that in whatever you're doing, the politics of that day is going to affect it. So the question is, has the politics helped in the development of the country? I feel like where we are when we compare ourselves, because I am going to compare the past 20, 40 years, because we've had the same government in power for that long. So the only people I have to compare it to is either in a different country or the regimes before them. So for me, I feel like the development somehow has backslid. I feel like what we achieved in the past 20 years after independence was a bit more significant from what we have achieved in these 40 years. Because I can point out to examples of, for example, when you look at infrastructure, back then our railway system was good, better than what it is right now after 40 years. When you look at the roads, I can tell you in this NRM regime of 40 years, each year they build only 100 kilometers of road. Which is very diabolic. So when you look at such things, because like we said, politics is development. When you look at our capital city, look at it, how it is panned out after 40 years. When you look at pictures of 1960s, of 1970s, how the capital city looked and how it looks right now, there's a lot of questions you have to ask yourselves. So when you look at education system, the healthcare system, because when you look at most of the regional referral hospitals, they were built in the Amin and Oboti era. What has this era done in the past 40 years to enhance health, and as far as that is concerned? So when I look at all those things, I feel like we are backsliding. But also that all comes down to having one direction of ideas. You know, when there is changing governments over a period of time, different ideas come up. That is why you see in countries that usually change governments. I'm not against having the same government. I'm not entirely against it, because if people continuously vote for the same government, there is no problem. But if you force your mandate on these people, that's where the problem is. Because these people have the same line of ideas. And if that line of ideas doesn't change, that means we are not having new ideas coming in to enhance development. For example, look at ICT. We are in the information technology era, but how developed is it in Uganda at the moment? Because my generation, if I don't have data, I'm not literally living. It's a basic need in my generation. But you're seeing the prices of data are so high. the penetration of internet is so low, penetration of electricity that helps in such is also low. So those are the challenges that this government is facing and is having in as far as implementing the policies and also its politics affecting business and the livelihoods of Ugandans.
Well, as you get it, the political development is really looking at the process by which these political systems change, adapt, and then also get to mature over time. It encompasses transformation, that is in political institutions, the practices of those involved, the cultures set up by the different stakeholders, and behaviors that occur within a society as it continues to progress. David, I wonder though, is our country facing politics of development in 2026 in your perspective?
In my perspective, I really think, first of all, by name I'm called Aisu David. And it's just like as in a point of clarification, I'm not the chairman NRM Butevo, I'm the general secretary of NRM Butevo.
Okay.
But one thing that I want to say is that development is a gradual process. It's not a one-day thing that you will just wake up and you think it will happen all of a sudden. It's a process. So then two is that we must learn to hold our leaders accountable. It is something so key. Because like as in, even if you want development and you're not holding your leaders accountable, it's useless because it's politics that shapes the development of the day. And I can't say like as in like in the last 40 years that as NRM nothing has been done completely because one, previously before that I think we only had Mulago as a referral hospital. As I speak right now, we have several hospitals across. We have Chirudu, we have, I think, the Kawempe side. I mean, these are all things that we cannot underestimate, and these are things that we cannot take for granted. Secondly, things to do with infrastructure. In my own personal place where I come from, initially we never had roads. But as I speak right now, there's a ring road that connects from Tirinyi to Kumi direct, which wasn't there before. So in my own perspective, what I think is that really the development that we have right now is there. The only thing is how do we hold our leaders whom we vote into these positions accountable to the electorates themselves? Because first of all, there's a binding agreement between me, the voter, and you, the leader who represents me. And once you violate that binding agreement, that means I must hold you what? Accountable. That means if I don't hold you accountable, then there's no I'll get my services as a voter. So that would be my opinion about it.
Well, David, you've mentioned something about roads, and she did also mention earlier that when you look at, as much as you talk about these developments that are coming up, that are also politically motivated because of the same ruling party, but she mentions that every year the kilometers of roads that are being constructed do not meet up to the level of development and growth we expect for our country. Now, if you're to look back the 40 years of that, as much as you're talking about the political development and how much is leading to these transformations, how viable is that from your perspective?
I don't really think, I think she's entitled to her opinion as an individual, but to me, I don't think that maybe like as in the road from Tirinyi to Kumi is just 10 kilometers. It's over 50 kilometers. It's a new road that has been worked on. It's over 50 kilometers. So maybe like as in her perspective, maybe like as in the places where she has moved, it could be true. But in my own opinion, what I think is that I really think that is so low. It's not 10 kilometers. It should be beyond that. But we have also seen other places. It's not just Eastern alone. We have seen the road from Kapchora to Buko. It's a new road. It's over 20 kilometers. You're picking my point. So I don't really think maybe like as in what she's saying is maybe right. Maybe like as in she has made her own research, and that's maybe what
David, from your perspective, do you feel Ugandans should be just used to that level? Some people feel the government can do more, but it seems it's making us settle for just that.
What I think is that really, honestly speaking, is that I really think government is still doing more. And I think government is still offering more because, first of all, we have a manifesto that we stand for as government. And the core principles of NRM as a government, of course, are prosperity, Pan-Africanism, and wealth creation. And these are things that are within the core principles of the party. Now, this means that maybe like as in, if given more time, there are so many things that we can achieve. The only thing is that maybe like as in, it's a process that we must do what? That we must follow. My only point is, we should stop the things of blame games. You see, as young people waste a lot of time on social media instead of doing constructive things that are more energetic and what. We are so energetic. But you find most of the time that we are always on social media. Instead of working and looking for things that can push us forward as young people. So to me, as a person, what I really think is that it's just a matter of time. But all I know is that development will be there.
David, I'll get back to you on that point of social media and why young people spend time on social media, because there is a reason as to why that is so. But let me get to Judith here. Politicking in various moments and institutions has been blamed to affect the kind of policies and effective service delivery. Do we have any sort of hope or level of hope with the new leaders, yourself inclusive, who are getting into these sports year in, year out? Do we have any hope that this is going to change, where we do not have to politic everything?
First of all, before I answer your question directly, I wanted to answer David on as far as social media is concerned. In this recent age and era, social media is not only about talking about politics, social media is about also business, making money, because we are seeing a lot of young people are advertising their businesses via social media. And many of them are actually, when you look at the young people getting a lot of money, are those who are using social media, TikTok. They're being paid a lot of money per hour. So even just making a tweet, do you know someone can make money from just making a tweet? So they're not just there for politicking, but also it's very important for them to also use their social medias for politics, because that is a form, a way of holding their leaders accountable. We've seen very many causes being driven by social media on accountability, on and other avenues on accountability, and people have been able to push through and get what they want through social media. So social media cannot be underrated and be narrowed down to something that small. It is a big platform that has given people business, that has given people a livelihood, that has given people that interest in also in the politics of the country. But also moving forward on the issue you asked, yes, and in this generation of young people who have traveled, who are educated, I think many of them understand the importance of how this politics is going to affect their livelihood. And you can see, I think you saw in the past election that we've had, the participation of young people was a bit high. It went a bit high, especially in as far as coming up for these political positions. One, because they know if we do not get involved in the decision-making process, how are we, our ideas going to be put into, implemented into these different manifestos? You've seen very many young people participate. For example, in my party, National Unity Platform, you saw us participate in building of the manifesto, first of all, and also in making sure it is translated to the people and they understand it. So if I've participated in the making of this manifesto, definitely I'm going to be a big implementer in making sure that these people get their services. For example, we talked about feeding students in school. And recently we've just had there's a student who died because they were trying to supplement their diet by climbing a mango tree, and they fell off in the east and they died. So those are things we are looking at as young people who have just come out of school, that many of these people don't have food in school. But if we give them food, I think their lives will become better in as far as learning, in as far as health and all other aspects. So there is a lot of hope in these young people who have come up. And for example, for me, I would have seen better hope if there was change in this government, and we bring a government that has new, better and more developed ideas compared to what has happened in the past 40 years. Because I'm sure with what has happened, we are going to have more of the same. There is nothing much that is going to change. But as far as what I can do as a councillor, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make sure that my political will, because this all comes down to the political will. How does your leader that you've elected feel about you, feel about the different policies? How are they going to make sure that you are included, you who is disabled, a person with disability, you a young person who is unemployed? How are they going to make sure in their policy formulation you are involved, you are catered for? That is what people need to see, and that is what they need to use as a metric when they're voting these leaders into power.
And maybe like as my point of clarity, coming back like
on social media,
coming back like as into the aspect of social media, is that like as in the roles played by social media cannot be underestimated in our political setting. But my point is, how do we use social media? Do we use it like as in for the positive constructivity of the community, or like as in we use like in the negative perspective.
But David, also criticism is a positivity in terms of better service delivery, you know.
Yeah, I know it very well. So like as in my point was, it's not that maybe like as in as criticizing social media, but my point is how do we use it for the benefit of the society?
Okay,
that was the most important thing.
David, let me get your opinion on this. You know, when you look at politicking in the various institutions and moments, I'll take you back to how the campaigns were moving. Some of the NRM, which is the ruling party that you are representing here as well, some of the candidates who wanted elective positions were using given platforms during campaigns, urging the electorate to vote for them if they want better services. And there are times where the president himself on the campaigns was blaming some of the, you know, some part of the electorate, that the reason as to why you're not seeing this kind of development in your area is because you voted poorly, and I'm advising you to vote for the NRM in the coming election. Now, in that point of regard, one may wonder, if I do not vote a certain candidate, won't I get services on my side?
First of all, what I want to say is that services are basic and they cut across, regardless of your political affiliation. But the point is, just like the president said, first of all, he's the chairman of the ruling party.
True.
And he has a right, like wherever he moves, to support the flag bearers of the party.
Very true.
But when it comes to development, I strongly believe that development cuts across. Whether it's opposition or NRM, we are all beneficial. We're all part of that, of the benefits of development. So to me, what I think is the most important thing, what he was saying, that vote people who will come and work with me to deliver what? Deliver services. Because at the end of the day, you're going to hold the government accountable. True. You're not going to hold any other person accountable. You hold
but
hold
you
government.
can hold your member of parliament. Or
of course, that's government and my honorable member of parliament, LC5 chairman, the councillors. I'll hold them accountable because they are my representatives. My binding factor is I voted them to give me the what? The available services. So the aspect of the president supporting the NRM flag bearers should not be taken for granted. It is his right. He's the national chairman.
And then the NRM flag bearers who use the positions of being affiliated to the NRM to ask for votes, because it's part of the politicking that if you want good services, vote for the NRM. And yet service delivery is supposed to be for the entire country, right? How do we deal with that? How do we change that?
Now, basically, of course, like as in just like that I told you, as a part of course, just like Asia said, they have their own principles that they believe in as NOP. As NRM, we also have our core principles that we believe in the manifesto that we must implement.
Like what, Dave?
Like wealth creation. We have seen aspects of PDM, M-Yoga, and these projects have impacted the lives of people in these villages. These are things that we cannot underestimate. But the point is, if I'm using my party slogan like as in to campaign for myself as a way of bringing services to the people, to me, I think I don't see any big problem in that. The most important thing is how people receive services. That would be the yardstick.
And if you're not voted in that region, what happens?
If you're not
voted in that region,
but still as a concerned person, still you can go and lobby for. You can still go and lobby for services, and they can be brought.
I wanted to hear that, Judith. Yes. Often the opposition is blamed for not working with government over developmental projects, and sometimes it hinders the development in areas where opposition politicians are representing. Case in point, at times when an opposition politician is seen with a ruling party, leader or member, the conversations always shift to he has sold, or he's a sellout, or he's now joining that party, even when it's just constructive conversations. Now, how do you see this changing with the emergence of so many young people, as you mentioned, in leadership positions, especially from the side of the opposition?
I think the challenge lies in the fact that the NRM government has been fused with the state. in that there is no separation of what is NRM, what is the government, what is the state. You're seeing very many appointments in different parastatals, in different arms of government that are basically political appointments, not based on competence, not based on what that person can do. We have seen the Uganda Airlines CEO recently. The leader of opposition, Joel Senyonyi, came out and was clear when he was a chairperson of COSASI that she doesn't have qualifications to be the CEO of the airline. And he talked about the many corruption scandals that had happened in her regime. But you saw how government defended her overwhelmingly, that she's qualified, and look at where Uganda Airlines has gone. Like, she's not the only one. I'm just giving us an example that many of these appointments into government positions, into parastatals, are basically political. We are appointing you because you're NRM, we are appointing you because you did this and this, we are appointing this RDC because of this, not because of their competence. And when you do such a thing, there is no way government will ever function. And that is why we're having what we're having today. Me interacting with someone in government, worldwide, opposition and government interact. It is a very healthy relationship because the opposition, one, holds the government accountable for the people. The opposition gives alternative policy formulation. In fact, the government can always copy the formulation of what? Of policy from opposition, because we give you the alternative perspective in the budgeting process, in the policy formulation. So when it's good for the people, you implement it. Unfortunately, what we have in Uganda today, where, for example, where the government is orchestrating killings of people, orchestrating abductions of people, and politically motivated arrests, how do you expect me to dine with such kinds of people? So you understand people's rage and anger if a Wanna Lukwago goes and dines with the other side without understanding what these people are facing. Breadwinners have been taken away from families. Look at Chibanama's family. The mother is gone, the father is gone, the grandparents are gone because of politics. How do you expect such a person to be happy with me? I am dining with the other side without solutions for their family. So it all comes down to how the government has played its politics, in that the people are frustrated. The people are not happy with what is happening. Of course, when they see me dining with their enemy, they shall not be happy. Yes.
I think maybe like as in lawyer, like as in wanted like as in to come in. Okay, I just wanted like as in to come in slightly. You see, in this kind of era that we are in, negotiating with government is not a sign of betrayal, in my understanding. It's just, I think, a landscape to political maturity, in my own understanding, because it's not the first time people are crossing from party to party. And people have their own personal reasons. That's why they cross from party to party.
David, this is not crossing party to party. Negotiations.
Negotiations, exactly.
It's more of how do we work together, even without crossing.
Even without crossing, exactly. Because, in my own understanding, I don't really think a man like Yusuf Nsibambi is a poor person. And I don't think really maybe he met the president because he wanted money. He's a rich guy. But his only point was he had his points that made him cross as an individual. And I think among the reasons that he gave, first of all, he wanted, like, as in some suspects to be released if he was to cross to NRM. And I think 34 suspects were released.
Isn't that the politicking we're talking about, David?
To some extent it is, but to some extent it's not.
Because why would
Because first of all, he never crossed for money.
True, but
he crossed for personal reasons.
Why would someone have to cross to the ruling party to have certain individuals released?
I mean, like, as in, just like they have told you, he had his own personal reasons as a person that are not, that me and you may not understand. I just give you part of the reasons that made him cross. Now, coming back, like, as it was what he has mentioned about the Uganda airline, it's true. There was a weakness. But the point is, this guy is not a permanent executive. He's just in an acting position. And we are just borrowing part of his expertise to help the what? The airline. Because, first of all, he's an Ethiopian by nationality. He has worked with Ethiopian Airlines. So he comes with borrowed experience to see basically if we can improve our what? Our services as a country. So me basically, I really think the fact that he's not like as in the full director who has been appointed, even the criteria under which he never went through the normal process, the due process of parliament being vetted. He was just appointed by what? By the president. So to me, we can't take his skills for granted as a person, because if he has like the necessary skills that can help us rebuild our aircraft, to me I have no problem with it.
David, let me hold you a little there. This is a question that goes to the both of you. There's something to do with what seems to be a politics of buying favor instead of working for the people, where people play the victim card. At times people are just doing things simply because they want, you know, to be voted for. For example, I love the fact that you've used Honorable Yusuf Nsibambi, who's the outgoing MP for Maokota South. When you look at the situation there, as he was crossing, or when he was retiring from elective politics just weeks back, he mentioned and said the electorate is, you know, the electorate isn't fair enough. Why? Because he had done all of these things for them in the past 5 years, expecting that they will return the favor by voting him back to parliament. And then you had what happened next. Transformer is cut off. He feels like the aid he has been giving to them, he shouldn't be doing it, however much he has been doing it on a personal level. So I wonder, how did we build up? How did this kind of character build up, where someone is doing things only for you to pay them back immediately, but they are your leader?
I think, in my own understanding, it's not obvious that maybe like, as in like, if you bring to me the services that I need, it's obvious that I'll take you back to parliament.
True.
There's no binding arrangement on that.
Yes.
Because the aspect of me voting you back into parliament is a combination of so many factors. And the voters have a variety of reasons as to why they vote people back into what? Into offices. So to me, I don't really think that maybe like as in he had maybe like as in constructed roads, offered services, built so many things, it was a yardstick for him to come back to parliament automatically. No. The point was, if the voters felt maybe like as in what he had served was enough to them, there was need for change, I really think maybe that should be the most important thing in my own understanding.
Okay. And Judith, how did we build this kind of character where people are just, you know, buying favor instead of actually working for the people?
I think using an example, Honorable Nsibambi will get me a little bit biased, because when I use him as an example, there are so many things I can give why I didn't go back to parliament. One of it is he's very sick. He's a very sick man, which is not a bad thing. I think all of you know what he has been going through in the past period of years, and he has just had an operation. So probably his voters thought, with his health challenges, he needs to rest, probably. I'm just giving it as an example. But also, I feel like he's very ungrateful. And like what my friend David said, poverty is not a state of having the physical wealth. Poverty is at heart. All richness is at heart. If someone is not satisfied with what they have, however wealthy they are, they will never be rich. They will be poor in heart. So for me, I feel Honorable Nsibambi is a poor man at heart. He may be rich in terms of physical wealth, but at heart is a very poor man. Because he has no gratitude to the people who voted for him in the first time he went to parliament. And next of all is, he gave these bursaries to these people. He wants to say he gave more than 700 something people bursaries because 700 people voted for him. He should be grateful that those people were grateful for the services he gave them and they voted for him. That is number one. So the first thing he should have done is thanking those 700 plus people that voted for him. But also moving forward is, one, when the government doesn't work for the people, it puts burden on the local leaders of that particular area to do certain things, because member of parliament, his or her role is not to physically extend electricity to the people. You can imagine Impiji is just here next to Kampala, but if they don't have electricity and it's the member of parliament who has to use their personal money to extend electricity, whose failure is it? Government. Goes back to government. If he has to provide bursaries for all these children in his constituency, the failure goes back to UCE, universal primary education and universal secondary education, because one, it has failed to cater for all these children to go to school. So it goes back to government. Many of these failures by government, the burden goes back to these leaders. So they have no option. They have nothing else to do. But also as a leader, if you fail in your mandate, for example, in as far as accountability and representation in Parliament, honestly speaking, I have been very, very keen on what happens in Parliament. Honorable Nsibambi has not stood out. Even when he's a professor of the law, he hasn't stood out in these past 5 years. Probably his people didn't see him doing the work he's supposed to do. That is why they had to demand for these other services he's not supposed to do. So when you look at all these are things that determine how these people are going to give favors to voters because they're expecting something, but it goes back to the working of government. Government hasn't worked, so all the burden is being put on these leaders, the local leaders, the LCs, the members of parliament, to extend services to these people, even when it's not their job. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And colleagues, when you look at the politics of development, they focus on how power, the power dynamics and the interest groups influence policies regarding development. I would want to also pick your point in how is Uganda evolving towards political, systems that are stable and create accountability, because there is that level where systems are also shaking, and then our leaders are never held accountable. Even when we try to hold the leaders accountable, there is always a point where they are safe. How do we create such a system that is stable and people are held accountable?
I think it all runs back to, like I said, the head of the government at the time. Institutions have to be empowered and strengthened. For example, the Auditor General's office. How strong is that office? Because it's the #1 office to hold leaders accountable in the country. How strong is that office? How strong is it empowered to hold leaders accountable? We have seen in various situations where the most corrupt people are the ones who are appointed by the president into power. They're appointed to become ministers even after stealing billions of people's of taxpayers' money. When you're the first leader, when you're the president who is in charge of leading the agenda of your government, you don't hold anyone accountable, you don't hold your family accountable to what they are doing, then, I mean, no one is going to take you serious, because we are just human. That is the reality of the matter. We make mistakes and it's a normal thing. That is why there are these laws that govern us, that if I make a mistake, probably I'll go to jail. If I make a mistake, the police will arrest me. People fear to make mistakes, or people fear to lead with impunity because they know there are consequences to whatever decision or choices they're going to make. But when I make a choice to probably abduct someone, when I make a choice to be corrupt, and there are no consequences, I mean, everyone is going to do it because there are no consequences. You saw, for example, I can give you an example of the shootings that happened in November 2020. Has anyone ever been held accountable for those 100+ people who passed on, who were shot by police and army? No one has ever been held accountable. So if there is no accountability, another person is going to shoot another person, and you've seen the shootings that have been happening, even in the campaigns recently. So it all comes down to the first leader. If the first leader holds no one accountable, if the institutions are not strengthened to handle, because you've seen also in very many cases where the police has come out to do its mandate of enforcing the law, and the president comes out and no, leave that one. That kind of micromanagement where the institutions cannot work on their own, the independence of parliament from the legislature, from the judiciary, from the president, if there is no that separation of powers, I mean, no one is ever going to do their job, because there's always someone lingering and overseeing, wanting to poke their nose in everything that someone is doing. We've seen the president directly going to parliament and influencing who people vote for as a speaker. That means that institution of government is not, the legislature is not independent, because they will bring someone who is a direct puppet of the president, of the executive. So all those comes down to how are institutions working in that country, how is the top leader acting in that country. So the impunity will keep moving in the NRA government as long as we still have that micromanagement at that kind of level.
David, how do we stabilize?
But
how?
There are also aspects that we cannot underestimate.
Such
there are
as?
situations where we have seen people being held accountable and taken to prison. For example, previously, of course, people like the Honorable Mike Mawanda, Zakamba, who were arrested and taken to prison.
Mawanda was later released, wasn't it?
But of course on reasonable grounds. I don't think it was just released like that.
It was public funds.
Then too, when it comes to security, well and good, I strongly believe sometimes there are weaknesses within institutions. These are things that we cannot underestimate. But we must also give credit where due. As I speak, in a recent report, I think 4 SMGs have been recovered, I think, recently, and I think nine suspects were arrested. That was a report from the head of crime intelligence. In the recent shootings in Seta, we saw the culprit being arrested. You're picking my point. Though we cannot say that police can be everywhere, but I mean, where they also play a role, we need also to give credit, because honestly speaking, much as even we have these cameras within the city center, but I mean still, that is not enough to combat crime within the city centers. Crime is something so wide that cannot just end within a single minute. So in my own aspect is, well and good, I strongly believe, just like Asia said, there are still weaknesses within these institutions, but I strongly believe that as time goes on, I think institutions will work normally. That is my... Yes.
David.
After 40 years,
David,
when are they going to work?
1996, the NRM came to power. 2026 marked 40 years. If you are saying, with time, things are going to go back to normal when?
No, like as in just like that I've told you. I mean, I can't say they are completely weak. But I mean, like as in there are areas that need to be rectified as a person. There are things that I also see as a person.
From your point of view, I want to hear something from you. From your honest point of view, what ways should we organize the systems, and which systems do you feel need to work fast for us to stabilize this political
I really think, first of all, the office of the IGG is a very key factor in this. Just the second office, I think, is the Auditor General's office. It is something so key. And I really think also the courts of judicature are also very key in this particular aspect, because you find that, first of all, like as we speak, day in, day out, songs keep on remaining the same. We always keep on hearing corruption cases. So that means, like as in, if we don't reinforce some of these offices, it will still remain a song within the public.
Speaking corruption, it is one of the things that every conversation rotates around when we talk about the weaknesses of the government. Corruption is always among the top 3. Corruption this, corruption that, and people keep on asking, how can we create room for accountability in terms of corruption? How do we deal with this? Because you've spoken about corruption here, and it's one of the things that is weakening institutions. It's one of the reasons as to why the money from the treasury is always swindled, because we have people who are corrupt, and this corruption does not only start from just one individual. It is kind of involving everybody. It's like a value chain kind of thing. How do we handle this situation?
I think it goes back, I think, to reinforcement of the laws, making them a little bit so strict.
The laws are there, David.
The laws are there, but they are not so reinforced.
You've used some of the examples of some people that were held accountable, but then they were released. How then do we punish them? Because if you arrest someone over corruption charges, and then the next thing is they are released, and then you have political prisoners who are yet to be released, begs for the question on where are our priorities as a country.
Of course, just like that I've told you, you like it on the laws are there, but still, just like that I've told you, we need reinforcement of these laws. And then 2, we need to bring these people to public. I mean, like, as we need to shame them publicly as individuals, because in most cases, when someone is corrupt and when someone has stolen public funds and you just keep quiet as a public, that means they're also part of the what? Of the corruption. So the most important thing is, as a public, the near fact that we have a binding factor of bringing our leaders accountable to ourselves. We cannot accept to see state resources being misused and we just keep quiet as a public. So I really think it's maybe like it's more of sensitization. We need to sensitize ourselves about the effects, the likely effects of corruption. Then 2, we need to see that maybe like as these people are brought to book when it comes to enforcement of the strict laws governing corruption.
Let me hear from Judith. Judith, the corruption issue and weak institutions act as great barriers to development. You are going to be a representative for the people in Makindye West at the City Hall. There's a lot of expectation from the people who voted for you, who wanted you to go out and represent them. When you look at the level of, corruption and how much we speak about it, you will never go into a political show and that is never brought up because it is really that huge in our country. How do we hold leaders accountable? How do we create and clean this kind of mess? Because it's really messy.
Like I have said before that corruption is going to continue happening. It has been normalized in this government. Because if, for example, I've told you, if the corrupt leader, the leaders you promote, they're the leaders you campaign for. For example, I'll give an example, the Speaker of Parliament. We have seen a lot of corruption scandals with her involved. Recently, the most known is the Mabati, the anchors that were made for Karamoja. To the extent that it was so big of a scandal, but people were arrested, and before even 6 months erupt, and DPP has already dropped the charges. But these people are guilty of stealing iron sheets, and they have actually confessed that they did so. So whenever the institutions do not hold maybe office bearers accountable for the corruption scandals they're involved in, another person, I tell you, is going to do the same because they know they can always evade the law. Whenever you're the president of the country, you keep giving positions so these people have been involved in corruption. Others know that there are no consequences. Even if I steal, there will not be any consequence to my stealing of public resources. So they will continuously do it. Whenever institutions are not empowered, for example, the police and the army is not empowered in terms of enforcing their law. You've seen very many police traffic officers getting bribes from people when they commit traffic offenses because they're not empowered. They're like, even if I arrest this person and take them to jail, the next day they are going to come for me and I release them outside the law. So they look at all those situations and they are not empowered enough to do what they're supposed to do. So for me as a leader, in my position, in my capacity where I will be at City Hall, one, I do not condone corruption. Corruption free. I will not participate in such a process, and my people should know that. So, and I am content. It also comes down to also contentment as a person. Are you contented with what you have? I can tell you, politicians in this country earn the best compared to other professionals in the country. They earn the best. So are you contented with that salary that you're getting compared? For example, a politician earns more than a doctor. I can tell you a councillor, LC3 councillor in Kampala, earns more than the average salary of a doctor in Uganda. You can imagine. So all those problems are being brought up by, one, people not being contented with what they get. Two is, like I've told you, the burden the government has put on these leaders to be the ones providing services to the people instead of the government providing services. So we as leaders, especially the opposition, one, we shouldn't be involved in that because we are the alternative government in waiting. We are the government in waiting. Whenever we show people an example of who we are, that is when they are going to vote for us. They're going to give us all these overwhelming support. So I call upon all my other people, especially in the opposition, that we should act as an example to the people that we are leading, to show them that we are the alternative government and we are going to give them the best rather than this government that is in power that has been riddled with a lot of corruption in it. And it's not going to change today, I can promise you. It's going to be the norm because it has been the norm over the past 40 years. So I don't expect any change. I mean, the child has been born and they are 40 years old. Do you expect change in them? Psychologically, also in science, someone who's over 40 years, you don't expect much change. So
I wonder, like, if I'm to ask you something, just something small, like as in there are situations where I've seen parliamentarians being given money. For example, like as on the side of the opposition, you find that money has been put on your account, but you don't come out to tell. You don't come out to tell the public that maybe like as in I've got this money and I've returned it back. You remain with it on in your account, and you're speaking about like as in we need to be you need to be exemplar as the opposition. So what do you have to speak about such situations?
I have not seen anyone who has gotten money on their I've not heard of anyone who has gotten money on their account without most of the people have gotten money from, one is they have agreed about it in parliament, and two, as a leader, it's not only opposition that should be held accountable for corruption. Everyone, every leader, as long as you are elected by the people, you should hold yourself accountable to corruption scandals. So it does not eliminate whether you're opposition or you're government. Everyone should be held accountable because we voted you as an individual. Most cases, we don't even vote you whether you're NRM, NUP, or what. We vote you as an individual to come and represent us. So everyone has to be held accountable, whether it's opposition, whether it's NRM. I do not discriminate on accountability issues.
And as we continue with our conversation, let's just head to Kenneth Odele. Kenneth Odele is with the president of the FDC party, Patrick Moriat. There are quite a number of things to discuss about with the FDC party president currently. He was also a presidential candidate in 2021. One of his party members might be the happiest political party across the African continent at the time. Whenever the people opposing you are then joining you, you get all the points that you want. Among us, the guests I have here, I have one from the opposition as well. Judith, the NRM seems to be, fetching. It's more like a transfer market for political leaders. They have the facilities to accommodate as many. As we are beating up with our conversation here, I wonder, for you as an NUP person, if you woke up one day and you saw your colleague of the National Unity Platform joining the NRM, what kind of feeling does it arouse in you?
One thing Ugandans have to know, that being in the opposition, especially in a country like Uganda, where there is poor governance, where the politics is not really well and streamlined, is not glorious, honestly speaking, because of it is very frustrating mentally, physically, emotionally, even financially, to be in the opposition. So someone being in the opposition for a period of time, 20, 30 years, is this person, one, came with a heart of contentment. They are contented with what they have and where they are. Two, they love their country and their people so much that they can be in the opposition and keep pushing each and every day. Because you've seen many times where members of the opposition are frustrated financially. It's not that they cannot do this and that and get what they want, but you're frustrated financially in terms of your assets, your business, by the government, because they don't want you to oppose them. You've seen that I can be walking out of the studio right now and I'm arrested for no reason. I'm just arrested and they trump charges on me. So. And also psychologically, you are frustrated in terms of you're doing all these things, but you do your best campaign, but you will win an election and they will declare the NRM person who is the last in the election. So when you look at all those things, sometimes you're like, maybe let me forgive this person for crossing. They've been frustrated for a long period of time. But you as a person who comes to the opposition, and sometimes people use it as a bargaining tool. They come to the opposition and probably they shine, they show their colors because they want to cross to NRM later. So you look at all those factors. And also the fact that when you look at the structures of government, when you're in government, you're in the party in government, you have a lot to offer. You have so many positions you can offer to these people. For example, we as the opposition, once we don't get into government, there is no position you're going to take up in terms of leadership. And very many people are very selfish. Once they don't get elected, they want to go somewhere. The ruling party has very many RDCs, i.e., if you fail in an election, you can be appointed as an RDC across all districts. RDC, deputy RDC, they even have assistant RDC, I had forgotten. Ambassadors, that's also a huge number. There are parastatals where they can appoint you. There are commissioner positions. There are so many positions that these people are enticed to cross. If, for example, you don't have principles that you stand on, if you're not, like I told you, self-contentment, if you're not contented with what you have, many of them will cross because of those personal reasons. And I'm sure Ansibambi has crossed to get a position in the NRM, not to remain an ordinary person. And we've seen very many cross because of that. Anita Among crossed for that. Nachwala Chinji from DP crossed for that.
Do you think at times they cross because they see no future with the opposition?
No, there is a future with the opposition. You didn't come to the opposition to probably be... We don't come to the opposition only to be in government. We come to serve. Even the opposition can serve the people in various ways. Like I told you, we are the head of the alternative budgeting process, head of alternative policy and all that. That is already service to the people. So for you, if you know the only way of service to the people is by being in the ruling government, then there is a problem. Of course, all of us want to go to be in the ruling government. We are not here to be in the opposition forever. It's not our position to be in the opposition.
You also want the NRM to be your position.
Exactly.
So what other ways can someone serve even when they're on the outside?
Yes.
Of let's say, the NUP or of DP, but they want to serve the people?
One is you can be elected as a member of parliament. They did not stop anyone being elected as a member of parliament. You can be elected as a member of parliament, local leader in any party that you're in. But even when you fail, leadership is not position. Leadership is an individual. Our president of the party, His Excellency Chagulanyi, he has not, the only time he held a position of leadership in government when he was an MP, but when you look at his track record, he has been a leader. He has served the people in various ways, through the charity he has done, through influence, because a leader, you must have that touch of influence. The only example I can give you is look at how he influenced Ugandans to love their national flag. Now that is a leader. The problem, these people want all financial benefits. If I am not getting financial benefits, I cannot be a leader. A leader must have influence. Does His Excellency Chagulanyi get paid for being a person who influences Ugandans to do things? No. He just has that charisma, that character in him that I'm going to influence them to do this. I'm going to influence, and that drives business in this country. Very many young people made money out of selling those national flags, out of selling merchandise associated with Bobby Wine.
Let me take your parting shot, David. I'll come back to Judith for her parting shot. David, too often government leaders fail to adopt and implement policies, and these kind of policies rather are necessary for sustained economic development, political development, and for the general growth of the country. So I wonder, what is the role and the level of citizen engagement and transparency in our politics? Where should we put it as we are summing up?
First of all, just like Judith has mentioned it, of course, earlier, before I come into that, I want to first clarify something small. Like
in a minute, David. We're out of time.
Okay. One is, Judith, first of all, like as in changing from one party to another party is just someone is right.
True.
It's someone is right that you cannot stop. And it's not the first time you are seeing people crossing from one place to another. Now, coming back, like as into your point, what you've said, first of all, one is it goes back like as into holding our leaders accountable. That is the first thing. If we fail to hold our leaders accountable, then that means we shall not get the services that we need as citizens of this country. So the biggest aspect is, first of all, like as in holding our own leaders whom we vote into these offices accountable, and making sure that they deliver the right services that they promise the electorates. That's the yardstick of everything.
Thank you, David. Judith, just one comment. Your message to the people of Makindye West as we're up with this conversation.
My message to the people is, one, I want to thank them for voting for us and also believing in our president. But most importantly, I want to tell you that you have the will. The will, and you have the power to influence political will, because political will determines whether you're going to get services or not. So you as citizens of the country, you have the power to determine the political will through various mechanisms, which include voting. We are going to vote for LC1s. I think, what is the date? Next month. We are voting for them next month. So I would encourage my people, especially the people of Makindye, to come out and, one, participate as people who want, as the candidates, because we need candidates in those positions and as National Unity Platform. But two, as the voters, please come out, and because an LC1 determines a lot in what happens in your zone, stroke village. So you should come out and be participatory in this process, because participation in political processes helps you, one, understand and get the right services for you as well as an individual. So I call upon you, people of Uganda, people of Makindye, to come out and overwhelmingly participate in the LC1 polls.
Yes, which to happen next month. That is still local government level. But that does it for our conversation and for Morning at NTV today, Thursday, the 19th of February. My two guests had Judith Nalukwago, woman councillor-elect for Makindye West, NUP leading, and David Ayisu, NRM Secretary General Butebo. You did say Secretary General, right? Thank you very much for joining us, and to you, our dear viewer, for being part of us from the time we started started at 6:30 a.m. with Betty Mudondo. Of course, the entire team with Elvis Sedano for the sports, and Kenneth Odele giving us that exclusive interview with Patrick Boy Amoriat in regards to the state of affairs for the FDC, especially after the departure of Yusuf Nsibambi. For more details, continue following NTV on the socials. I am Joram Paul Sonko. Have yourselves a good day and